Okay, so I shall light the chalice. Light the chalice. That's really good. So light the flame from the chalice, in which we light each Sunday during our time together. We are going to explore the dance of light and shadow, not only as a physical thing in which we experience from an outside perspective, but from inner workings of our emotional thought processes, what lurks in the depth of our own soul, what has truly nourished our hearts or our egos. So, but before we do that, we'll go into our first song. I always keep forgetting to go on, so I create a lovely slide at the beginning, and I always forget to show that at the beginning. But there we go. So our first song here is Here We Have Gathered, number 62 in the Purple Books. So I'm going to read a poem now, which is by somebody unknown. In the cathedral of silence, where the soul removes its name, light and shadow meet barefoot upon the trembling floor. Come in. Yes, just the seat. Just take a seat.
Hello. And welcome.
Thank you. Most welcome. They do not come as enemies, they come as mirrors. One arrives clothed in gold, with hands full of memory, whispering, "You were born to open." The other drifts like smoke through broken doors, its voice soft as forgotten grief. You were taught to fear the dark, and still they dance. Inside us lives 1,000 worlds, gardens watered by compassion and abandoned rooms where sorrow still hums to itself. We become what we rehearse in secret. We sculpt heaven and ruin with the stories we repeat beneath our breath. Fear is not a monster, but a shadow cast by a mind turned away from its own flame. Love is not merely emotion, it is remembrance, the ancient returning, the soul recognizing itself in all things. So the dancer spins, one hand burning with stars, the other stained with midnight, and every moment births a universe. So from judgment, a wall, from tenderness, a bridge, and from shame, a prison, and from forgiveness, a door. This is a sacred art, to witness both the wound and the wonder without becoming captive to either. For light without shadow blinds, and shadow without light forgets that dawn exists. The wise learn not to destroy the darkness, but to sit beside it until it speaks its hidden name. And there, in the stillness between opposites, the soul remembers. We are not divided beings. We are the space where night kisses morning, where fear becomes teacher, where pain becomes passage, and where love becomes creation itself. The dance never ends. It simply asks, what will you illuminate with the life you have been given? Bit of a long poem, but I just thought it apt for this today's theme. So I'm going to play you a video now. It's a neuroscientist, Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor, is best known for a 90-second rule about emotions. Let's have a look.
This is so interesting. An emotion will last 90 seconds if you give it space. So if somebody offends you and you're angry and you sit there and you're like, okay, I'm going to feel this anger for 90 seconds. After 90 seconds, the emotion will start to dissipate. It will lose its grip. But the research shows if you do not process or digest emotion in real time, it can last in the human body for up to 7 years. 7 years. This is why people are so emotionally unwell, because they're holding all this undigested emotion, because we're just moving too quickly. We're just moving too fast.
Yeah, so imagine if you think in our own lives, how we hold on to emotions and thoughts and feelings for so long, and it becomes a heavy burden if they just keep accumulating and we keep not processing that and not letting them go. We end up carrying that. It's like having a rucksack and you keep putting heavy weights in it. Eventually that becomes so heavy it starts cutting into your shoulders. You start feeling it all across the back of your neck. Emotions just hang heavy just like that. So it's good to let them emotions out, and to process them and not keep them in. So it's nice to think, well, what emotions are we holding on to? Sometimes we don't even realise that we're doing it. But while you think on that thought, we'll go into our next song, which is number 86, Lady of the Season's Laughter. So the dance of light and shadow. There's a moment just before dawn when the world seems undecided. Night still clings to the edges of things, yet light begins to whisper its way across the sky. And in that quiet tension between what is seen and unseen, known and unknown, something profound unfolds. A dance. It begins. So if you see that on a nice sunny day and it goes down and the shadow of the night comes over, that's the time I really like, the dusk. You see that interplay of the light and shadow. So they are more like partners. And we often taught to chase the light, to seek clarity, joy, certainty, and goodness, and to flee the shadow as though it were something to be feared or erased. Look closely at the world around you. Light on its own can be blinding, and shadow on its own can be obscuring. Yet together they create depth, shape, and meaning. So a face without shadow is flat, and a landscape without contrast becomes lifeless. A story without tension and a build-up becomes forgettable. We were talking about reading earlier. Without that bit of something in there, we would just put the book down and not bother reading it. So it is the interplay, the dance, that brings the beauty. Consider how light behaves. It travels, it reveals, and it warms. It touches surfaces and says, here you are. It names things, gives them presence. Light is generous in that way. It offers itself freely, illuminating what might otherwise remain hidden. But shadow is not merely the absence of light. Shadow is a response to light. It is the echo that gives light its voice. I was going to put on here, you might have seen the objects and you shine a light and you might see a triangle on one side and you see a circle on the other and a square on the other side. And you get this funny shape that can reveal different elements of its shadow. It becomes a different story of what that object actually is. So that's what I was thinking at this point. So where light falls, shadow forms, not as a rejection, but as a companion. Shadow outlines, it defines, it deepens. It reminds us that illumination always carries mystery alongside it. And in our own lives, we often forget this. So I met this guy recently who's been coming along to some of the events I've been at, and he apparently is an author, and he published his book in March, so not so long ago. Strange enough, I've come across quite a few authors who've just recently published something, which is, so I think, I'll buy that book, and I'll buy that book, and I meet somebody, I'll buy that book, and that wanting to know a little bit more about the author and what they've written. But this guy is called Omar, and he writes about his own life story, and he writes about his own shadows and what he had to go through, and it lays his life bare in this book, about his own traumas, his childhood struggles, and how over his time, as he gets into adulthood and up to the present moment, I suppose, details his journey, his struggle, and his way of approaching that and coming into a new sense of who he actually is. I've not fully read this book, as I've just only recently got it, but from his story and the way he describes it, I get this idea that he's gone and tried many different things to look at what's happened in his life, and it's his journey. It's become his journey, and how he's been able to overcome some of this trauma, which we all have in our lives or had, and we push that down sometimes. and we don't address that. And just like these emotions, we've probably had 90 seconds to sort of try and overcome it and process it, and sometimes we've just not done that, and it just then sits there, and we carry that for the next coming years. And sometimes we don't think we have that kind of trauma, but we'll go more into that a little bit later in my own story. We celebrate the bright moments, the achievements, the clarity and the joy, because that's a good thing to do. We speak easily of what shines, but what of the shadows, the quiet doubts, the grief we carry, the questions that linger without question or answers? We tend to treat these as interruptions, as if the dance has gone wrong. But what if the shadow is not a mistake? What if it is part of our choreography? Think of our own stories. There have been moments when everything felt clear, purposeful, and lit from within. And there have been moments when you could see your way forward, when uncertainty stretched long and heavy like evening shadows. But if you trace the arc of your life, you may notice something unexpected. The times of shadow often shaped us deeply, if not more so than the times of light. If you have so much light that you never known shadow, then how do you know what is right and wrong? What is, if everything's always right? And, what is the contrast to show what is the opposite of that? And the other way, if you're always in fear, you never see what brings us purpose, hope, and joy. So being too far in the extremes can sometimes lead us in a way of unrealistic view on what is life, in the physical presence anyway. So there have been moments when everything felt clear, purposeful, lit within, and there have been moments when you could see your way forward. And if you trace the arc of your life, then we notice these things. It is in shadow that we learn to listen. It is in shadow that we discover resilience. It is in shadow that we begin to ask better questions. Light tells us what is, and shadows invites us to explore what might be. And together they form a rhythm, a movement between knowing and seeking, between presence and possibility. In Taoism, there's this explains the yin and the yang, which is light and shadow. And I may have told this story before. It was once explained to me, and the sun shines on a mountain, and on one side you have the light, it's lit, and on the other side you've got the shadow, which is, because of the peak of the mountain. And it's a bit like our lives, really, because as the sun moves, the shadow moves, and then eventually, as the sun gets to the other side, the sun shines where the shadow was, and the shadow now where the light was. It's a constant moving kind of scenario. And that's like our lives. It never stays the same. It's always moving. And so we have to adapt and learn. We learn from that. And it builds us. It brings us experiences which we can learn from. And hopefully we know not to go back into some scenarios, and it leads us onto better things as we adapt to this kind of interplay and this dance of light and shadow. So there's a temptation, especially in difficult times, to demand constant light, to seek solutions, clarity and reassurances. And these are not wrong desires. Light sustains us and it guides us, and it does gives us hope. But when we insist on light without shadow, we risk losing our depth. We flatten our experience, and we deny parts of ourselves that are still worthy of attention, even if they are uncomfortable. The dance requires both. To live fully in our human existence is not to eliminate shadow, but to learn how to move within it, to recognize its presence without being consumed by it. Shadow cannot teach us, shadow can teach us patience, and it can cultivate humility if we let it. It can open space for empathy because we begin to understand that others too are navigating their own dimly lit paths. There is also this shadow shift. They're not fixed. They lengthen and shorten, soften and sharpen, depending on where the light falls. What feels overwhelming in one moment may become manageable in another. And what seems unclear today may in time reveal its shape. This means that neither light nor shadow has a final word. The dance continues. So while you think about that, we'll have another song. Number 64, how can we confine God within our mind? So imagine standing at sunset. The light stretches low across the ground, casting long shadows that move with you. You do not step out of your shadow, it travels with you. But notice, it does not hinder your movement. It follows, adapts, and reshapes itself as you go. That's the quality of shadow. Perhaps that is a way of understanding our own inner landscape. The parts of us we might call shadow, our fears, our regrets, our uncertainties, do not need to be eradicated to move forward. They can be acknowledged and even integrated without dictating our direction. We walk in the light and the shadow walks with us. There's quite wisdom in this. Light alone might tempt us towards arrogance, towards illusion that we see everything clearly, that we have nothing left to learn. Shadow alone might lead us towards despair, towards a belief that clarity is impossible, that we are lost, but together they hold us in balance. They remind us that understanding is always partial and that growth is ongoing, that life is not a static state, but a dynamic movement. It's a dance. So this dance seems to be a part of our human existence, whether we like it or not. So why not embrace it? My time through the One Spirit training and through counselling sessions, I learned that I had built so many walls. So through my training, this 2-year training, it was just full of counselling. And because we had to explore this in many different ways. So before I got to this point, I thought, I've dealt with all this. I've gone and dealt with everything in my past. So I thought, I really have to dig deep now into resurrecting something which I might have already overcome or come to peace with. So I dug deep into my early childhood and found something which I'd already made peace with. So I'll use that. But then I realized that I built a wall in which, so it did not actually penetrate my emotion, my inner being at all. And through these counselling sessions, I brought that wall down and realised there was still some deep hurt and emotions that was dwelling deep within me. And that was not the only thing. I realised that this had become a mechanism for me dealing with life. So I built a wall for that. And when I look back, that's when coincidentally or not, that's when my migraines, my 40-year start of my migraines, that's where the very root of that. Maybe that was the cause or the start of it, I don't know. But I went through life as a young man who was struggling with, I was shy and introverted. And so I found, especially as I was an engineer going into that kind of environment, I needed a tool to help not be overcome by that kind of environment, basically. It was tough, and so I built walls, and so it just bounced off the wall. I found a way of not coping with it. I didn't have to, because I built this wall. That was fine. That was my coping mechanism. And when I was in the early part of the church, the parts of the scriptures that I didn't like, okay, I built a wall. I didn't have to look at that. And so I compartmentalized. I looked at scripture, I looked at life, I looked at everything. I like this bit, I don't like that bit. I'll build this wall, everything's fine. But what happens when all them walls come tumbling down? So of course, at this point I did my training, I probably built a whole city. And so I proceeded to take all these walls down. And I felt like I dealt with all this, but going deeper, I realized I not truly dealt with it. I just tucked them away into different rooms, different homes, different compartments, and built this whole city, if you like. But I was in a good place, and I was held while going through this process, counselling. I never thought about counselling. I'd never been to counselling up to this point, and never felt the need for it. But of course, I was held, and I went through this. I had to be counselled as well as counsel with others, and group counselling, and tutor counselling, and yeah, it was a lot. But each session was very lovingly held, and so I could explore all these deep-seated experiences which I found when I was younger, and properly process them. So all these emotions that I might have carried for more than 7 years, some of them 40 years, I was able to gently leave them to one side. So I suggest if you ever get the chance, you might seek counselling wherever needed. It was a wonderful process, something I would have never probably have known unless I'd done my training and actually it been part of that process. So I inadvertently had counselling, and that lasted 2 years. So I sought inwardly for all that time and was able to bring that up and process it. So that was my inner goings on, and I cannot advocate it enough. And so if you ever find yourself going deeper and finding that you have problems with looking within yourself, it's not something to keep hidden there in the depths of your beingness and your body, but to let that out. But there are places in which you can do that safely. So I would suggest that you may seek that and seek them places. So with that, we go into our final hymn, which is number 126 in the Purple Book. Open the door, step right inside. Something to lift our spirits a little bit. So after talking about all that shadow, a dance of shadow and light, and all that shadow that we might find within us, it's nice to have a bit of uplifting music. The music is a tool in which we can all use, as well as our connection with each other, our connection with a place like this, our church, and our community. So yeah, it's the overall really message here is seeking that balance, and not to be too far into the light that we cannot be approached by anybody else, and that we think we've resolved everything, because life has a way of bringing us down a peg or two. But also knowing that when we are in our worst times and our most vulnerable, that we also have to find that middle place in which brings that equanimity. I choose these long, difficult words. But it's a case of balance. And so, as we come to the end of the service, and we focus again on the chalice that lights, not just illuminates as a physical thing, but that keeps going on within us. We are both illuminated and obscured, certain and questioning, strong and vulnerable. Within that tension lies our humanity. So perhaps the goal is not to stand permanently in the light, not to escape the shadow entirely, but to learn the rhythm to find grace in the movement itself. To step forward when the light calls, to pause when the shadow deepens, and to trust that both have their place in the folding of our lives. And when you find yourself, as you surely will, in that in-between moment, the place where light has not fully arrived and shadow has not fully receded, remember, this is not the absence of meaning. This is where the dance begins.